In the world that would become Hyrule, there was once nothing but a formless expanse known as the Still World. According to the legends told by ancient sages, three golden goddesses descended from beyond the clouds to shape the land. Din, the goddess of power, traced the curves of mountains and the contours of valleys. Nairu, the goddess of wisdom, poured order into the chaos and set the laws by which the universe would move. And Farore, the goddess of courage, breathed life into every forest, river, and creature. When their work was done, the golden goddesses left behind a golden relic, the Triforce, a perfect triangle of three triangles that held within it the essence of power, wisdom, and courage. Entrusted to the care of the goddess Hylia, the Triforce was meant to grant a wish to anyone who possessed a balance of those virtues. The artifact is more than just a plot device. It is a symbol of balance that would echo through all of Hyrule's history. It is said that if the heart of the one who touches the Triforce is imbalanced, the relic will divide, scattering its pieces to those who embody each virtue. Over the ages, the Triangle of Power would fall into the hands of a reincarnated demon king bent on domination. The Triangle of Wisdom would be protected by the royal bloodline of Zelda, and the Triangle of Courage would choose a hero whose quiet determination could not be broken. The story of Hyrule is built on this cycle: a sacred relic, a reincarnating villain, a wise princess, and a chosen hero. Before people ever carved homes out of the hills or planted crops along riverbanks, the goddess Hylia watched over the nascent world. As guardian of the Triforce, she knew that others would covet its power. When the Demon King Demise rose from the depths to claim it for himself, Hylia gathered the surviving humans onto a floating isle and sent them beyond the cloud barrier, out of the demon's reach. She hid the Triforce among the clouds and sealed Demise on the surface. In the timeless telling, we hear about the tribes that joined her, Gorons, with bodies of stone, the diminutive Kikwi, hiding in thick foliage, Magma tunneling through volcanic soil, Perella swimming in lake depths, and even ancient robots rusting in the desert. Each tribe had its own relationship with the land, its own songs and customs, and together they fought beneath a sky that would one day cradle Skyloft. But Hylia's plan came at a cost. She was wounded in the battle and could no longer maintain her divine form. Rather than watch the seal break in some distant age, she sacrificed her godhood and bound her spirit to a mortal line, vowing to return when her people needed her again. That vow, that choice to step down from the heavens, set in motion the pattern of reincarnation that threads through the ages. On the surface, the tribes adapted to a world where the sky itself had been torn open. The Gorons learned to roll like boulders across the slopes of Elden Volcano. The Perella built homes in the watery caves of Farron. The descendants of Hylia's chosen ones built small villages on the floating islands above the clouds. Children of Skyloft grew up telling stories about the surface that seemed as unreal as a dream. Down below, though, the world was already changing. Trees grew over ruins, and silent machines, their gears seized by sand, waited like forgotten guardians in deserts that once had been seas. The legends hint at an interloper war, a time of chaos when sorcerers sought to seize the Triforce and bent reality itself. To protect the sacred relic, a sage named Rauru built a temple of time around the pedestal that held the Master Sword, a blade forged from the goddess sword and tempered with sacred flames so that it could repel evil. Only someone worthy could draw that blade, and only then could the door to the sacred realm be opened. The early myths of Hyrule tell of heroes before the green tunic became iconic. They describe the hero of men who wielded the Pickery blade and the light force to seal away the bound chest. They speak of the Minish, tiny beings who come from the sky to help mortals when darkness threatens. These stories whisper of festivals and seasons, of villagers gathering to celebrate the day when the Pickery would appear. There is a serenity to these tales, a sense of cyclic time that feels like the changing of the wind. Long before the timeline split into branches, before the era of heroic legends and the tragedies that followed, Hyrule's world was a tapestry of myths woven from the voices of people living close to nature. The glow of a CRT television may flicker differently than the light from a campfire, but the feeling of listening to an elder speak about the origins of the world is the same. You might remember, curled up in front of a small screen, listening to the start screen's melody loop as words like Din, Nairu, and Farore appeared in the manual. In that moment, the myth felt as tangible as the plastic cartridge in your hands. After the creation and the ancient war, the legend shifts to the Sky era, where floating islands drift like petals above the clouds. On Skyloft, life unfolded peacefully. People rode large birds called loftwings, caring for them as partners more than beasts. The island's only connection to the surface world lay in ancient tablets and ceremonial rituals that few took seriously until destiny reached up through the clouds. In the oral histories, this is where the goddess Hylia's reincarnation appeared. A young woman named Zelda. She was not the regal figure we would later associate with the royal family, but rather a childhood friend to a young knight trainee named Link. The two of them grew up exploring Skyloft's quiet corners, the soft rustle of loftwing feathers accompanying their conversations. It is said that on the 25th wing ceremony, a dark tornado conjured by the demonic servant Girahim pulled Zelda down to the surface. Her fall set into motion events that would reveal the surface world not as a myth but as a lush and dangerous place scarred by ancient conflict. Guided by Fi, the spirit dwelling within the goddess sword, Link descended from the safety of Skyloft through a swirling column of light. The first step onto the surface is described like stepping into a memory. Lush forests of Farron where dew clung to enormous leaves, rocky volcanoes in Elden region where lava flowed like streams of gold, and deserts of Lanairu, where time itself seemed to hang in stasis, with ancient robots half buried in the sand. The surface held clues to the past, including statues that responded to songs and sealed gates that opened only to those carrying sacred flames. Link's journey to temper the goddess sword into the master sword felt like a pilgrimage through the world that the goddesses had created. At the temples, he confronted manifestations of evil and his own fear. He sought out the three sacred flames, each one representing one of the virtues, and allowed their light to transform his blade. He listened to Fi's calm instructions, her voice echoing in the stillness of ancient halls. The process of forging the master sword was not a single moment of triumph, but a series of small rites, each one accompanied by a quiet melody that continues to linger in players' minds. The story of Skyward Sword is important, not only because it chronicles the forging of the master sword and the origin of the recurring hero and princess, but because of the quiet sacrifices and everyday moments that make it feel real. After traveling through time to speak with an older Impa and to watch Zelda willingly place herself in a 1,000-year slumber to keep demise sealed, Link returns to a present that has been shaped by his absence. Ruins that were freshly carved in his timeline are ancient in another. Friends he left behind have aged, and some have passed. He reunites with Groose, a once arrogant competitor who has now matured through his own trials. Groose builds a device called the Groosinator, an improvised catapult that he uses to help in the battle against the imprisoned. Even a humorous nickname becomes part of a legend when told in the hush of night. At the heart of the Sky era is the idea that history is shaped by choices made in quiet moments. Zelda's decision to stay asleep, Impa's decision to remain in the past to guard the Master Sword, and Link's decision to fight demons even when he is uncertain, all create ripples. When Demise is finally confronted in a realm beyond time, he carries with him a hatred so ancient and deep that he vows to send his reincarnated malice after the descendants of Link and Zelda. That curse, though born from anger, binds the characters to each other. The knowledge that an incarnation of evil will always rise ensures that a hero will always appear. And it is this rhythm that gives The Legend of Zelda its cyclical, almost hypnotic quality. From a sensory perspective, playing through Skyward Sword evokes the feeling of a warm summer night. The orchestral soundtrack is full of sweeping strings and gentle woodwinds that mimic the feeling of flying. The cushioned weight of the Wii Remote in the hand, the subtle whir of the console's disk drive, and the soft clicks as you control Link all combine with the ambient sounds of the game. Even if one did not play the game, the idea of a floating island above a clouded world conjures images of pastel skies and calls of birds as one drifts towards sleep. The Triforce on the screen pulses gently, like a heartbeat, as if reminding the viewer to breathe slowly. After the events of Skyward Sword, the people of Skyloft descend to the surface and build a kingdom with the help of various tribes. The newfound land is named Hyrule, a nod to Hylia, and to the endless horizon that now holds both sky and earth. The descendants of Zelda and Link become known as Hylians, tall and slender people, with long ears said to hear the voices of the gods. Their buildings are modest at first, wooden homes along the banks of rivers, small farms, and communal gathering halls, yet they carry with them the memory of the sky. They look up often, drawing comfort from the sight of the islands above, even as they plant roots below. In this way, the Sky Era closes quietly, leading into the next age where the echo of ancient battle and the promise of prosperity begin to shape Hyrule's story once more. Hyrule's early development was marked by contrasts, the peace of a young kingdom and the shadows of ambition. After the people settled on the surface, tales tell of an era of chaos. In those days, the sacred realm, the dimension that held the Triforce, became the focus of countless groups seeking ultimate power. The Interloper War, as some texts call it, involved powerful sorcerers who used forbidden shadow magic to try to seize control of the sacred realm and rework reality to their whims. The golden goddesses, unwilling to see their creation ruined, sent the spirits of light to banish the interlopers to a twilight world. To further protect the Triforce, the sage Rauru sealed the sacred realm behind the door of time and placed the Master Sword in a pedestal inside a newly built Temple of Time. In doing so, Rauru transformed the Master Sword from a mere weapon into a key that could only be used by those worthy of its weight. This event marks the moment when time itself is first locked, a theme that will recur throughout Hyrule's history. When the chaos subsided, the era of prosperity followed. With the sacred realm sealed, Hyrule's descendants could focus on building their society. Princesses born into the royal family were named Zelda, after the first mortal incarnation of Hylia. It was said that many royal family members possessed spiritual powers, a gift from their divine ancestor, which allowed them to communicate with the gods and perform ceremonies that kept balance in the land. This era is also when the mysterious Uka are said to have assisted in founding Hyrule. According to legend, the Uka were ancient beings who resided in a city above the clouds. Their involvement underscores how sky and earth remained connected even after the founding of the kingdom. Prosperity brought festivals, song, and structure. The Picori Festival is one such celebration recorded in the legends. Each year, the people of Hyrule commemorated the day when the tiny Minish, also called Picori, descended from the sky to deliver the Light Force and the Picori Blade to the hero of men. Villagers would gather in town squares, hanging paper lanterns, playing simple wooden flutes, and telling the story of how the Minish saved them from an assault by evil beings. It was a humble festival compared to later royal ceremonies, yet it bound people together around a shared origin story. Children would listen wide-eyed to elders who spoke of mysterious tiny people scurrying through grass blades, invisible to anyone with a hardened heart. They would be reminded that assistance does not always come from expected places, and that humility is itself a virtue. The Force era arises within this context of celebration and vulnerability. With the sacred realms sealed and the people busy building, new threats emerged. The Force era is named not after violence, but after the light force, a powerful essence that radiates wisdom and light. According to the legend of the hero of men, evil beings again attacked Hyrule. The Minish descended and bestowed upon a human champion the Pickery Blade and the Light Force. The champion sealed the demons in the bound chest and locked it with the blade. For a century, the chest remained closed, and the Pickery Festival became an occasion to remember that peace. Yet peace is fragile. On the 100th anniversary of that festival, a young Minish named Vati, corrupted by ambition and thirst for the Light Force, won the sword-fighting tournament. During the award ceremony, he shattered the Pickery Blade, opened the bound chest, and released the sealed evil. This moment underscores how quickly celebration can turn to crisis, and how heroes often arise from the most unassuming roles. The subsequent quest to reforge the Pickery Blade and rescue Princess Zelda, who had been turned to stone by Vati, is chronicled in The Minish Cap. Link in this era is a blacksmith's apprentice, highlighting how the hero often begins as a craftsman before destiny calls. To break Vati's curse, Link must shrink to the size of a bug with the help of Eslo, a wise Minish sage who is also Vati's former mentor. The journey takes him through towns where the smell of baking bread wafts from chimneys, across rivers overgrown with lily pads that become giant platforms when seen from a tiny perspective, and into forests where mushrooms tower like trees. By infusing the reforged blade with the four elements, Link transforms it into the Four Sword, capable of splitting him into four selves. This multiplicity is not just a gameplay mechanic. It reflects how the responsibilities of a hero can feel like more than one person could bear alone. In the quiet of night, one can imagine the soft rustle of leaves and the tiny footsteps of the Minish as they guide him. The Force era continues in Four Swords and Four Swords Adventures, where Vati re-emerges without memory of his past. Now calling himself the Wind Mage, he kidnaps maidens from villages and hides in the Palace of Winds. In these stories, Link draws the Four Sword again and is divided into four heroes, each a reflection of a different aspect of his character. Together, they navigate the Sea of Trees, Talus Cave, and Death Mountain, collecting keys to Vati's palace and overcoming puzzles that require cooperation. The resonance here is not with high drama, but with teamwork and patience. Each Link plays a simple instrument in harmony to open doors. Each must stand quietly on pedestals to align symbols. The imagery of four green-clad figures moving silently through forests and caves is both peculiar and soothing. It suggests that even when split, a determined heart remains unified in purpose. Long nights of the Force era blend into days when Hyrule feels both small and infinite. Villages like Kakariko and Hyrule Town are filled with routine tasks, blacksmiths hammering at metal, farmers tending to cuckoos, children chasing each other in dusty squares. At the edges of these communities, however, lie secret entrances to caverns where ancient stones hum with power. For those who love to explore the dichotomy between everyday life and hidden adventure, is the very essence of the early Zelda games. Sitting on a carpet in front of a square television, players would guide a tiny pixelated hero through labyrinths by the flickering light of a map drawn on notebook paper. In that setting, the Force era's events felt both enormous and personal, like a bedtime story that invites the listener to imagine themselves stepping through a door into another world. From the pastoral villages and magical festivals of the Force era, Hyrule's timeline moves into the era of the Hero of Time. This era begins with a civil war that splintered the kingdom. The Hylian royal family sought to unify the land, and during this turmoil, a Hylian woman fled the battlefield to the Kokiri forest, carrying her infant son. She entrusted the child to the great Deku tree before succumbing to her injuries. Raised among Kokiri who never age, the boy named Link grew up believing he was one of them. He wore green clothes and played in the forest with other children. In the distance, he could faintly hear the echo of a city he did not know. One day, dark clouds gathered over the forest and monsters began to encroach. The great Deku tree, a guardian spirit, summoned Link and entrusted him with a fairy named Navi. The tree explained that a man from the desert had cursed him in an attempt to seize the Kokiri's emerald, one of the 3 spiritual stones necessary to open the door of time. This man was Ganondorf, the leader of the Gerudo, who had pledged fealty to the king of Hyrule while secretly plotting to enter the sacred realm. After removing the curse inside the great Deku tree, Link listened as the tree told him to visit Princess Zelda, who shared premonitions of impending catastrophe. This meeting is one of those quiet moments in the legend where 2 children, both burdened with knowledge of the future, make a plan in the protective shadows of a castle courtyard. The memory of sneaking past guards, of the gentle rustle of hedges in the courtyard, sticks with players who experienced it. At Princess Zelda's urging, Link sought the other 2 spiritual stones. He traveled to Death Mountain to aid the Gorons, who were suffering because Dodongos had infested their cavern. He ventured into Zora's domain, where the beautiful Princess Ruto had become trapped inside Lord Jabu Jabu. These tasks were not just heroic trials, they were favors done for friends. Link listened to Darunia's dance, delivered fish to a giant fish, and played his ocarina to hatch a cuckoo egg. Through these interactions, the world of Hyrule became more than a backdrop. It became a living community with rituals, songs, and shared meals. When Link collected all 3 stones, he returned to Hyrule Castle only to witness Zelda and her guardian Impa fleeing from Ganondorf. Zelda tossed him the Ocarina of Time as she rode away, entrusting him with the instrument that would open the door of time. The moment Link drew the Master Sword from its pedestal in the Temple of Time, time itself fractured. Because he was too young to wield its power, the sword kept him sealed within the Chamber of Sages for 7 years. He awoke as an adult to find Hyrule transformed into a land of darkness, with monsters roaming the fields and towns abandoned. The sky was perpetually clouded, and a foreboding castle floated above the lava-filled moat where Hyrule Castle once stood. Ganondorf had seized the Triforce of Power and used it to transform the sacred realm into an evil reflection of Hyrule, now called the Evil Realm. In this world, familiar places became eerie echoes. The Kokiri Forest was infested with monsters, Zora's domain was frozen, and Kakariko Village lived under the constant shadow of the Shadow Temple. Link's journey through this desolate landscape is the heart of Ocarina of Time. He sought out the 7 sages whose powers were needed to imprison Ganondorf. Each sage represented a different tribe and area: Saria of the Forest, Darunia of Fire, Ruto of Water, Impa of Shadow, Nabooru of Spirit, Rauru of Light, and Princess Zelda herself as the Sage of Time. The temples associated with each sage were more than dungeons. They were sacred spaces that reflected each tribe's identity. In the Forest Temple, vines draped over mossy walls while ghosts danced in empty ballrooms. In the Fire Temple, chants echoed through molten chambers. The Water Temple tested patience with its interconnected chambers and the soft sound of footsteps in ankle-deep water. The Shadow Temple whispered of past atrocities with portraits of weeping eyes, and the Spirit Temple shimmered with desert heat and ancient statues. These temples serve as metaphors for the inner journeys of the player, confronting fear, practicing patience, emerging resilient. After awakening each sage, Link confronted Ganondorf in his castle. The music builds slowly, layering choral voices and organ chords until the final encounter feels like an ancient ritual. With the combined power of the Master Sword and the 7 sages, Link and Zelda sealed Ganondorf in the Evil Realm. In his rage, Ganondorf transformed into the beast Ganon, but the hero and the princess prevailed. Zelda used the Ocarina of Time to return Link to his childhood so that he could live the 7 years he had missed. This act born of compassion, fractured the timeline. One path follows the world in which adult Link defeated Ganon and then vanished, leading to an era without a hero. Another path follows the child who warned Zelda of Ganondorf's treachery before it happened, allowing the villain to be executed. A third, darker path is the one where Link fell in battle, and the land entered a decline. The splitting of the timeline is a structural choice by the creators to accommodate various games' narratives, but within the lore it feels like the rippling consequences of a single kind act. Playing Ocarina of Time on a CRT television invites a certain mood. There is the hum of the console as it reads the cartridge, the clunk of the controller buttons, and the sight of Link's hands plucking at an ocarina in rhythm with the notes you play. The act of learning songs, lullabies, Sun's Song, Song of Storms, connects the player to the world in a tactile way. Many still recall the feeling of drawing the golden cartridge out of its sleeve, its weight and its shimmering surface reflecting the room's light. These sensory details anchor the era of the hero of time to specific moments in players' lives, making the legend feel personal. The era of the hero of time closes with heavy questions. Can a hero truly rest? What happens to a kingdom when its savior disappears? How do the people of Hyrule remember events that are erased for one version of Link and not the other? This unresolved tension sets the stage for the three branches of the timeline. Each branch explores a different answer to the question of what happens when the hero triumphs, fails, or simply leaves. The lingering note from the Song of Time fades as the legend splits, like a river dividing around an island. The adult timeline begins in the world where the hero of time defeated Ganondorf as an adult and then disappeared when Zelda sent him back to childhood. Without a hero to wield the Master Sword, Hyrule stood vulnerable. When Ganondorf broke his seal and returned to terrorize the land, there was no one to oppose him. The people prayed to the goddesses for rescue, and the response was dramatic. The goddesses flooded Hyrule, sealing Ganondorf and the kingdom beneath a vast ocean. Water covered the plains and cities, leaving only mountain peaks and temple spires poking above the waves. This image of a drowned kingdom is both melancholic and soothing. In the context of the game, the water shimmers with reflection. In the imagination, it feels like the gentle rocking of waves that could lull one to sleep. On a small island called Outset, a boy named Link lived with his grandmother and younger sister. The tradition of wearing green on a child's coming-of-age day was meant to honor the hero of time. When pirates led by a young woman named Tetra arrived, and Link's sister Hyrule was snatched away by a giant bird, Link set sail across the great sea to rescue her. He traveled not on a grand ship, but on a talking boat named the King of Red Lions. The boat explained the state of the world and guided him to islands where he collected the pearls of the goddesses. The sequence is peaceful, sailing under open skies, watching the sun rise and set, hearing the wind blow across the sea, and occasionally spotting a distant island on the horizon. Each island had its own culture: Dragon Roost with its Rito tribe, Forest Haven with Koroks, Great Fish Isle shattered by storms, and each required Link to solve puzzles and help locals before receiving a pearl. When the pearls were placed upon their statues, the Tower of the Gods emerged from the sea. This ancient structure is one of the most arresting images in the series. A colossal stone tower rising slowly with water cascading down its sides. Link entered and proved his worth in trials that tested his courage, wisdom, and power. At the tower's summit, a beam of light transported him beneath the ocean to a bubble where Hyrule Castle stood frozen in time. Inside the castle, the dusted air held silent nights and glittering stained glass windows depicting the sages. Link pulled the Master Sword from its pedestal, but its power had waned over the centuries. He learned that to restore its strength, he needed to awaken the sages of Earth and Wind. The journey to awaken the sages took Link to the Earth Temple and the Wind Temple. where he worked alongside companions Medley and Makar. Medley, a member of the Rito tribe, played the harp and navigated light puzzles. Makar, a tiny Korok with a violin, floated on breezes. These dungeons were bathed in warm colors and gentle music. There was a calm deliberation to moving mirrors to guide beams of light or playing duets to open doors. With the sages awakened, the Master Sword regained its power. The climax of The Wind Waker saw Link confront Ganondorf in the ruins of underwater Hyrule Castle. Tetra was revealed to be Zelda, though she preferred the name she had always known, and the two fought alongside the King of Red Lions, who revealed himself to be the last king of Hyrule. Ganondorf spoke of his longing for the wind that dried the desert of his homeland and lamented the changing world. The battle concluded when Link drove the Master Sword into Ganondorf's head, turning the villain to stone. The king then wished for Hyrule to remain sealed beneath the waves to prevent future conflict. Link and Tetra floated to the surface as the kingdom disappeared forever. This ending is strikingly peaceful. Instead of a triumphant return to land, the hero continues his life on the sea, exploring unknown horizons. In the sequel, Phantom Hourglass, Link and Tetra chase a ghost ship across the waves. The game is played from a top-down perspective, and much of the adventure takes place on small islands with bright beaches. The player draws maps on a virtual sea chart, marking treasure spots and plotting courses. The central mechanic is the titular Phantom Hourglass, which protects Link from the life-draining fog of the Ocean King. Its ticking becomes a gentle metronome during dungeon exploration, a reminder to move deliberately. Late-night players might remember gently closing the DS screen to activate a puzzle, or blowing into the microphone to propel windmills. The design invites a physical interaction that feels intimate and almost secretive. Spirit Tracks continues the adult timeline on a new continent, the land of New Hyrule, which Tetra and her companions founded after generations of voyaging. In this story, Link is a train engineer, guiding the spirit train along rails that crisscross a verdant countryside. The whistle of the engine and the clack of wheels against metal tracks provide a rhythmic backdrop that can lull a listener into reverie. Zelda in this era is spirited and playful. When her body is stolen by the villainous Chancellor Cole, her spirit accompanies Link as a companion. Together, they visit temples to restore the spirit tracks and awaken the Lokomo sages. The puzzle of moving between train stations, scheduling switches, and stopping for wandering livestock gives the game a gentle sense of planning, like mapping out chores before bed. The adult timeline's themes are shaped by water and wind, travel and exploration. Its heroes and villains often have no true homeland. They are wanderers on the sea, on rails, or in the sky. The absence of a single land to defend creates a feeling of transience. Yet across these stories, there is a through line of caring for companions, rescuing a sister, protecting a friend, guiding a princess. The imagery of waves lapping gently against a wooden hull, the sound of a distant gull, or the hiss of steam from a train all contribute to a calming, sensory experience. As the adult timeline drifts into legend, we are left with the image of sails, catching wind, and stars reflecting on water. The child timeline branches from the moment when Princess Zelda sends Link back in time at the end of Ocarina of Time. In this branch, young Link warns the royal family of Ganondorf's betrayal before the villain can open the door of time. As a result, Ganondorf is captured and eventually sentenced to execution. The execution scene is not a violent spectacle, but an almost ceremonial event in which the sages attempt to pierce Ganondorf with the Sword of the Sages. However, their attempt fails. Ganondorf possesses the Triforce of Power and cannot be killed. In his fury, he kills one of the sages and is banished to the Twilight Realm. This failure sets in motion the events of Twilight Princess. Before that, however, the child Link embarks on his own adventure. Shortly after returning to his time, he rides into the Lost Woods astride his horse Epona, searching for a friend. He stumbles into an alternate world called Termina. In the legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask. This world is a mirror of Hyrule, but twisted, as if reflecting the dreams and fears of its inhabitants. Above Termina, a grinning moon with hollow eyes looms, descending slowly and threatening to crush the land. Majora's Mask follows a 3-day cycle. When time runs out, Link plays the Song of Time to return to the dawn of the first day. He experiences the same events repeatedly, learning the routines and problems of every resident. In this format, time becomes a tool. The game's slow pace, waiting for a certain hour, observing a character's schedule, matches the rhythm of a bedtime routine. Players often found themselves performing small acts of kindness, retrieving a mask for a grieving mother, reuniting lovers separated by a curse, and helping an aging performer sing one last song. As Link dons different masks, he becomes part of various communities. He is a Deku scrub playing in the swamp, a Goron rolling across snowfields, a Zora swimming through turquoise waters. This transformative aspect resonates with the concept that one can play different roles in life while remaining the same at heart. Twilight Princess occurs many years later in the child timeline. It depicts a Hyrule that has matured into a sophisticated kingdom with sprawling fields, bustling villages, and a castle that towers over the capital. Yet, a mysterious twilight spreads across the land when the usurper king Zant invades with forces from the Twilight Realm. Where twilight falls, people are transformed into spirits who cannot interact with the world, and monsters called shadow beasts prowl. Link is pulled into this realm and transformed into a wolf. In this form, he meets Midna, a small imp-like creature with a sardonic wit and a deep sadness. Midna becomes a guide and a friend. Together, they venture through dungeons and gather pieces of the fused shadow. Twilight Princess is notable for its shifts in aesthetic. The Twilight Realms are muted with blues and grays, dotted with golden particles. The normal world is rich and warm. The game feels like a series of vignettes, herding goats in Orden Village, escorting a carriage under attack through a canyon at dusk, spinning on chains through the Arbiter's grounds, and gliding through the air as a wolf with Midna on your back. The final confrontation with Zant reveals him to be a puppet of Ganondorf, who uses the Triforce of Power to once again threaten the world. The battle spans Hyrule Field, the castle, and an ethereal realm, ending when Link plunges the Master Sword into Ganondorf's chest. The moment is solemn, accompanied by a gently swelling orchestral theme. Later still, the Four Swords Adventures picks up threads from the Force era and weaves them into the child timeline. In this tale, Vati is once again sealed in the Four Sword, but his imprisonment is disrupted when dark clouds gather over Hyrule. The Shrine Maidens are captured, and Link draws the Four Sword to rescue them, splitting into four. The heroes travel across regions reminiscent of their earlier adventures: snowy plains, wooded areas, and deserts, using cooperation to overcome obstacles. Ganon makes an appearance wielding a trident and using Dark Links as his proxies. The Four Swords Adventures is often remembered for its colorful visuals and for the way it encourages collaboration, even when played alone. Each Link has to stand on a switch or move a block in tandem with the others. In a bedtime story, one could imagine the four Links speaking quietly among themselves, strategizing in hushed voices before continuing their journey. Throughout the child timeline, the theme of transformation emerges repeatedly. Link becomes a Deku, a Goron, a Zora, and a wolf. Midna transforms between imp and her true form. Ganondorf manipulates others through possession and deceit. Underneath these transformations lies an exploration of identity. Each mask Link wears teaches him empathy. By the time he returns to his original form, he has walked in many shoes. The narrative structure of Majora's Mask, with its repeating days, also encourages reflection on how one uses time. There is never enough to solve every problem at once, so choices must be made. It is a gentle lesson that some tasks can be postponed while others require immediate attention. Similarly, Twilight Princess's shift between light and twilight invites the viewer to consider how perspective changes when one crosses thresholds. Musically, the Child Timeline games use slower tempos and poignant melodies. The Song of Healing from Majora's Mask is a lullaby that transforms sorrow into acceptance. The sound of Midna's Lament, a haunting piano theme played as Link carries an injured Midna through rain-soaked Hyrule Field, is both sad and reassuring. Even the victory fanfares in these games have a wistful tone. Visually, the games use twilight colors, forest greens, and the soft white of snow. In the context of a sleepy exploration, the Child Timeline feels like an evening walk through familiar streets where the shadows grow long and the first stars appear. As the Child Timeline drifts onward, those who played these games as children may recall turning off the console and looking at the darkened reflection of the screen. The feelings of time repeating, of identity shifting, and of a fierce loyalty to friends lingered. The branch ends in relative peace, with Ganondorf defeated and the villain Vati sealed. Yet the undercurrent of transformation continues to ripple through Hyrule, ready to surface when the legend needs to be told again. The Fallen Hero Timeline explores the world in which the hero of time is defeated by Ganondorf during Ocarina of Time. Without Link's protection, Ganondorf claims the complete Triforce after taking the Triforce of Courage and Wisdom from Link and Zelda. The Seven Sages seal Ganon and the Triforce within the Dark World, but the cost is immense. The Knights of Hyrule are nearly wiped out in the imprisoning war, and the kingdom falls into decline. This branch does not shy away from loss, yet it frames those losses through the lens of perseverance. The people of Hyrule do not forget their heroes. They carry legends of the hero of time like lullabies and continue to hope. In the era of light and dark that follows, a dark wizard named Aghanim usurps power in Hyrule Castle, brainwashing the soldiers and making 6 maidens, descendants of the sages, disappear. Princess Zelda calls out telepathically to a young boy who lives with his uncle near the castle. In The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, Link wakes to his uncle's quiet departure in the rain. The game begins with a nocturnal rescue, lit only by lantern light. Link makes his way through secret passages, rescues Zelda, and is told of the danger to the 7 maidens. His quest takes him across Hyrule and into the Dark World, a twisted version of the sacred realm that reflects the hearts of those who enter. Each dungeon has an eerie quality: skull-lined walls, dark waters, and echoes of forgotten monsters. Yet the tasks within remain manageable: lighting torches, pushing blocks, listening for hidden switches. The music is repetitive and hypnotic, with flutes and whistles swirling like a lullaby. The concept of dark and light worlds resonates strongly with a sleepy exploration. Traveling between 2 versions of the same place feels like moving between waking and dreaming. After rescuing the maidens and defeating Ganon, the timeline continues through Link's awakening. In this game, Link is shipwrecked on Koholint Island and must collect musical instruments to awaken the Windfish. The island is revealed to be a dream, and waking the Windfish causes everything on the island to disappear. This twist underscores a theme of impermanence. The act of helping characters who vanish afterwards is both sad and gentle. It evokes the feeling of helping a dream figure that fades when morning comes. The music in Link's Awakening is simple and chiptune based, and its melodies loop in a way that can become meditative. The Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages form a pair of linked games in this branch. In them, Link travels to the lands of Holodrum and Labrynna. Each game can be completed independently, but linking them via a password reveals a greater story. The Oracle games emphasize cycles, seasons change with the turn of a rod, and time flows backward and forward. The ability to alter seasons brings variety to the landscape. Snow covers villages, leaves blaze red and gold, vines grow tall in spring, and sunlight shimmers on lakes in summer. In Ages, Link travels through time to repair a broken land. These mechanics encourage a reflective pace, Players may sit and watch as leaves fall or wait for a tree to grow. In the quiet of night, the act of changing seasons can mirror adjusting a blanket or pillow to find comfort. A Link Between Worlds revisits the concept of parallel worlds. Set many generations after A Link to the Past, it follows a young blacksmith's apprentice named Link in the kingdom of Hyrule. When a sorcerer named Yuga begins turning people into paintings, Link discovers he can merge into walls and travel through cracks between his world and Hyrule, a dark mirror kingdom. This ability adds a layer of depth to the game's puzzles. Perspective changes when one is flush against a wall, and doorways appear where none existed. Hyrule's princess Hilda initially seeks to use the Triforce to restore her kingdom, but ultimately realizes that stealing another's hope leads only to ruin. She chooses to let Hyrule keep its Triforce, and Zelda uses it to restore Hyrule's own. These events emphasize trust and empathy between parallel worlds. The visual of Link flattening into a painting and sliding along surfaces is reminiscent of shadow play on a wall by candlelight. Triforce Heroes, though often regarded as a light-hearted chapter, sits within this timeline. In the fashion-obsessed kingdom of Hytopia, Princess Styla is cursed to wear an ugly jumpsuit. 3 heroes band together to defeat a witch called the Lady and break the curse. The cooperative gameplay requires stacking heroes to reach high ledges and throwing each other across gaps. Costumes grant special abilities, and their designs, from the cacto suit to the cozy parka, are whimsical. Underneath the humor, the game speaks about acceptance and individuality. People must learn not to judge based on appearances. The slow pacing of arranging 3 characters and planning movements together suits a relaxed atmosphere. The Fallen Hero timeline eventually reaches the original The Legend of Zelda and its direct sequel, The Adventure of Link. In these early games, the world is dangerous and minimalist. The first game places Link in a wide-open overworld with little guidance beyond a cryptic hint to take a sword from an old man. Players must map the world themselves, placing bombs against suspicious walls, burning bushes to reveal caves, and listening for the beep of a compass that signals a hidden key. The sense of isolation is notable. There is no companion offering tips, only the player's own patience and curiosity. The Adventure of Link expands on this by adding side-scrolling combat and towns where the citizens provide cryptic information. Both games share a palette of greens and browns, the chirp of 8-bit sound, and the glow of a television that may have been the only light source in a child's room. The difficulty of these games, contrasted with their simple graphics, invites perseverance. It is the quiet determination to push against a wall and discover a secret that resonates with the theme of the Fallen Hero timeline. Even when the world feels lost, small acts of bravery can create new legends. Throughout this timeline, one sees the motif of music and instruments: a flute, a harp, a rod that changes seasons, a bell to call a flying rooster, a set of bells to awaken the windfish. Instruments serve as bridges between worlds and between states of being. They are played calmly, their notes drifting across lakes, forests, and deserts. When collected together, the instruments produce a melody that wakes a deity or opens a path. In the quiet moments before sleep, one might imagine these tunes overlaying each other, creating a peaceful chorus of woodwind and string. Falm Wascararo. Timeline may sound somber, but its tone is ultimately hopeful. Each game tells of rebuilding after destruction, of forging friendships in lonely places, and of trusting that someone will always stand up to darkness. It reassures the listener that even when one version of the hero fails, another story continues, carrying with it memories of courage. The era of the wild takes place long after the kingdoms and timelines we have described faded into myth. According to Creating a Champion, an official compendium, the backstory of Breath of the Wild happens so far in the future that everything before it is remembered only as legend. The Sheikah tribe, once known for their mystical arts, developed advanced technology, 10,000 years before the game. They built guardians, ancient mechanical constructs with spider-like legs, and divine beasts, animal-shaped machines capable of immense power. When Calamity Ganon appeared, Zelda and Link of that era sealed him away with these machines' help. But their king later ordered the Sheikah technology to be buried out of fear. Over millennia, the knowledge of that technology slipped into obscurity, and the Sheikah split, with the Yiga clan turning against the royal family. In the present time of Breath of the Wild, Zelda and Link are born again. Zelda struggles to awaken her sealing powers, visiting springs across Hyrule and praying for guidance. Link trains as a knight and becomes the chosen bearer of the Master Sword after pulling it from its resting place in Korok Forest. 4 champions from the Rito, Zora, Goron, and Gerudo tribes are selected to pilot the divine beasts. They are Rivali of the Rito, Mipha of the Zora, Daruk of the Gorons, and Urbosa of the Gerudo. Each champion has their own personality and backstory. Rivali is proud and competitive. Mipha is gentle and caring. Daruk is jovial and protective. And Urbosa is regal and maternal. These champions bond with Zelda and Link, forming a group of friends united by hope. When Calamity Ganon breaks free, he corrupts the guardians and divine beasts, turns them against Hyrule, and kills the champions. Link is mortally wounded while protecting Zelda, and she uses her powers to seal Ganon in the castle while Link sleeps for 100 years in the Shrine of Resurrection. The image of a hero sleeping for a century in a pool of healing fluid, watched over by ancient machinery, is haunting. When Link awakens, he has no memory of who he is. The world around him is overgrown. Once majestic towers lie broken, villages are ruins, and wildlife roams freely. Only a few settlements remain, such as Kakariko Village, now inhabited by the Sheikah who stayed loyal, and Zora's domain, built around a cascading waterfall. The Great Plateau, where Link begins his journey, functions like a cradle. Its edges are steep cliffs, and its shrines act as gentle tutorials. The old man who greets Link turns out to be the spirit of King Rome, guiding him with patience. Breath of the Wild is notable for its freedom. Link can climb any surface, glide through skies with a paraglider, and cook meals using mushrooms, herbs, and meat gathered from the wilderness. The cooking system produces gentle melodies, and the resulting dishes have names like spicy meat and seafood fry, or energizing elixir. Rain affects climbing, lightning seeks metal weapons, and cold requires warm clothing. These systems encourage planning and observation. The soundtrack is minimalist. Piano notes dot the soundscape like stars, and environmental sounds, birds chirping, wind rustling grass, distant guardians chirruping, fill the silence. The effect is calming. A player can wander for hours, gazing at the horizon, following a fox through the woods, or sitting by a campfire as dusk settles. At night, the sky fills with stars, and the aurora glows faintly. It is easy to become entranced, moving slowly through the world without any urgent mission. The quests in Breath of the Wild are small stories woven into the landscape. In Hateno Village, a scientist named Pura offers to upgrade Link's Sheikah slate. In Terrytown, Link helps build a community by gathering materials and finding people whose names end with Sun. In Rito Village, Link helps a small child learn to fly. Many quests involve family, duty, and simple daily life. Even the main dungeons called Divine Beasts are subdued. Each beast is a giant mechanical animal that Link must enter, rotate, and activate. There is no timer. The puzzles can be solved at a leisurely pace. The voices of the fallen champions speak to Link inside, encouraging him in soft tones. When Link is strong enough, he returns to Hyrule Castle. The castle is free to explore from any angle. One can run through its outer courtyards, climb walls, swim through moats, or glide from towers. Calamity Ganon waits as a mass of smoke and malice. After defeating him inside the castle, he emerges as Dark Beast Ganon, a giant boar-like figure made of energy. Zelda lends Link the Bow of Light, and together they defeat Ganon. The sky clears, and fields begin to bloom again. Zelda speaks of her power returning and her desire to rebuild. The game ends not with an elaborate ceremony, but with Link and Zelda looking out over a repaired kingdom, contemplating their next step. Tears of the Kingdom continues this era. The gloom emanating from beneath Hyrule Castle causes illness, and Zelda and Link descend into the caverns to investigate. They discover a mummified corpse that turns out to be Ganondorf. As the seal on the corpse weakens, a concentrated jet of gloom injures Link and shatters the Master Sword. Zelda vanishes into an abyss and later discovers that she has traveled back to the founding of Hyrule. There, she meets King Rauru and Queen Sonia, who lend her their light and time powers. Back in the present, Link awakens on a sky island and must explore 3 layers of the world: sky, surface, and depth. New abilities such as Fuse, which combines items, and Ultra Hand, which lifts objects, allow him to build contraptions. The concept of assembling makeshift vehicles using fans and carts has a tinkering quality reminiscent of childhood toy building. As Link travels, he frees new sages from various tribes and ultimately faces Ganondorf, who consumes a secret stone to transform into a demon dragon. Link defeats him in the sky, and Zelda, who had turned into the Light Dragon, is returned to her human form. The narrative concludes with the sages pledging to stand ready if evil ever returns. Tears of the Kingdom reinforces the era's themes of restoration and unity. It also deepens the history of Hyrule by introducing the ancient Zonai tribe and revealing that Rauru and Sonia were the first king and queen. Their names echo down to modern times, linking the past to the present in a subtle way. Mechanically, the era of the wild games encouraged slow exploration and creativity. There is no imposed order to tasks. One can spend hours catching butterflies, shield surfing down snowy slopes, or experimenting with cooking. The world reacts gently. Horses snort and flick their tails, bees buzz around flowers, and the sound of Link's footsteps changes depending on whether he walks on grass, sand, or stone. The weather affects the mood. A rainstorm can lead to a rainbow, and thunderheads gather slowly before lightning strikes. The Sheikah slate's soft beeps and the rumble of a controller when a shrine is nearby provide subtle guidance. These elements make the era of the wild feel like a long, peaceful walk that occasionally surprises you with a discovery. In the quiet hours after midnight, playing Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom can feel like wandering through a dream. The world is vast, but there is always something within reach. The low piano notes of the main theme, punctuated by the occasional trill, mirror the rhythm of breathing. The emptiness of the world invites reflection. Memories of previous legends echo faintly. Ruins of the Temple of Time, broken guardian, husks overgrown with vines, and names like Rauru carved into stone. It is a world built on top of myths, yet it stands alone as a quiet, patient chapter. Beyond the in-universe chronology, the legend of Hyrule is also a story of creators and players. In the mid-1980s, Shigeru Miyamoto began developing The Legend of Zelda as a launch title for the Family Computer Disk System. Drawing inspiration from his childhood explorations of forests, caves, and lakes, Miyamoto sought to create a game that captured the joy of venturing into the unknown. Takashi Tezuka, co-developer, brought his love of Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings, contributing to the game's medieval sword and sorcery feel. They wanted players to feel like they were on a treasure hunt, reminiscent of adventure films such as Indiana Jones. Originally envisioned as a 2-player dungeon creator, the game evolved into a single-player experience where a hero traveled through underground labyrinths surrounded by a broad overworld. When it came time to name the game, a PR planner suggested Zelda, the name of F. Scott Fitzgerald's wife, because it sounded mysterious and old-fashioned. Thus, The Legend of Zelda was born. The original game released in 1986 on the Famicom Disk System in Japan and later on cartridges for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Its gold cartridge became an iconic symbol. The game's save system, enabled by the disk system's rewritable media, allowed players to record progress, a novelty at the time. Koji Kondo composed the music, intending to use Ravel's Bolero for the title screen until copyright issues required a last-minute change. He then composed the now famous overworld theme in a single night. This theme, with its ascending melody and adventurous cadence, has become synonymous with the entire series. The sound of obtaining an item or unlocking a door has remained largely the same across games, a link between generations. The development history is filled with details that feel almost like bedtime stories themselves. In Japan, certain enemies like Pol's voice were designed to be defeated by speaking into the Famicom's second controller microphone. When the game was localized, players in other regions had to discover a different method as their controllers lacked microphones. The Book of Magic, called the Bible in Japan, was renamed to avoid religious references. These small changes illustrate how myths adapt to different cultures. When players inserted the golden cartridge into their NES systems, they felt as though they were opening a treasure chest. The physical act of blowing on the cartridge's contacts to make it work added a ritualistic element to starting an adventure. As the series progressed, each game introduced innovations while maintaining a sense of continuity. A Link to the Past added a deeper narrative and introduced the concept of parallel worlds. Ocarina of Time brought 3D graphics to the series, with Miyamoto and his team painstakingly translating the top-down exploration into a fully realized space. The Z-targeting system allowed players to lock on to enemies and objects, simplifying navigation in 3D. Players still recall the feeling of galloping across Hyrule Field, with the camera positioned behind Link, the horizon stretching into the distance. Majora's Mask reused the engine but shifted the focus to a repeating time loop, showing that the series was willing to experiment. Wind Waker introduced cel-shaded graphics, giving the world a softer, storybook appearance that some initially questioned but many grew to love. Twilight Princess answered fans' desire for a darker tone, while Skyward Sword returned to motion controls. Breath of the Wild broke conventions by removing structured dungeons and letting players explore freely. For players, the experience of encountering each new game became part of their own history. They remember the smell of a new instruction manual, the crisp, fold-out maps, and the taste of snacks consumed while playing late into the night. They recall the frustration of getting stuck in the water temple and the satisfaction of finally raising the water level correctly. They remember sharing rumors at school about how to find the Triforce in Ocarina of Time or how to trigger glitches that allowed them to explore outside the bounds of the game. In the pre-internet days, these rumors spread like folklore, with each retelling adding embellishments. Later, online forums and video guides became the new campfires around which stories were shared. The sensory details of playing Zelda games at night are intimately tied to the series' atmosphere. The glow of a CRT television or the soft backlight of a handheld screen often provided the only illumination in a room. The quiet hum of the console fan, the clicking of buttons, and the distinctive jingle when a secret was found formed a soundtrack of their own. For many, the first time hearing the item get fanfare was accompanied by whispered excitement so as not to wake parents or siblings. As technology advanced, the crisp resolution of HD screens made the lush fields of Hyrule feel even more immersive, yet the essence of the experience remained. Sitting wrapped in a blanket with a hot drink, guiding Link through forests at night, and hearing the in-game owls hoot created a comforting synchronicity between the real world and the digital one. Reflecting on the series' development also involves acknowledging the creators behind the scenes. Shigeru Miyamoto and Takashi Tezuka remain symbolic figures, but hundreds of artists, programmers, writers, and musicians contributed to each entry. Their dedication to crafting puzzles that can be solved by players of all ages to designing characters who speak in simple, heartfelt dialogue, and to composing melodies that linger, speaks to the intention behind the legend. The games are designed not to shock, but to invite. They encourage players to take their time. When one considers the complexity of coding, a game where grass rustles in the breeze or where water flows realistically down a hill, one gains appreciation for the craft. This sense of respect extends to the translators who localize the games, selecting words that captured nuances and cultural references. Nostalgia is woven into the fabric of Zelda. People remember not just what happened in the games, but where they were when they played them. They may remember a parent's voice telling them to turn off the console and go to bed, the feel of a couch that has long since been replaced, or the warmth of a sibling sitting nearby. The slow unfolding of dungeons mirrors the slow passing of childhood nights. In adulthood, revisiting these games feels like opening an old photograph album. Familiar areas such as the Lost Woods, Kakariko Village, or the Temple of Time serve as landmarks in personal histories. Players might pause in these spaces, listening to the ambient sounds and recalling the first time they struggled through a maze or discovered a secret room. With each new release, the series honors its past while inviting new players. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom introduce the series to those who may not have grown up with the NES or SNES. These players may discover the older games through digital re-releases or watch playthroughs online. The legend becomes a shared dream across generations. A child may watch a parent play and later pick up the controller themselves. An adult may watch a streamer experience Ocarina of Time for the first time. Each perspective adds to the tapestry, and each retelling softly reinforces the legend's endurance. Ultimately, the development, history, and nostalgia surrounding the Legend of Zelda series are as integral to the complete history of Hyrule as the in-universe timeline. They remind us that legends are created by people, passed down through careful craftsmanship, and treasured by communities. They highlight the human element behind a digital world, the developer's childhood memories, the player's late-night adventures, the shared laughter and frustration. As we drift towards sleep, thinking of creators hunched over desks in Kyoto in the 1980s, or of ourselves lying on a rug in front of a warm television, we see that the history of Hyrule is both a myth and a memory. The legend of Hyrule is a tapestry woven from myth, memory, and craft. It begins with goddesses sculpting land, sky, and life. It unfolds through eras of chaos, prosperity, heroes, and floods. It splits into branches where time loops, kingdoms drown, masks transform, and villains return in ever-changing forms. It reaches into a distant future where technology and nature intertwine and where the world lies open for anyone to explore at their own pace. Outside the fiction, it also charts the creative journeys of developers and the personal histories of players who grew up with cartridges, discs, and digital downloads. As we drift toward the end of our exploration, the images and sounds of Hyrule blur softly. The shimmering gold of a cartridge rests in a drawer. The gentle murmur of a CRT television gives way to the quiet hum of a modern console. Fields of pixelated green grass fade into watercolor oceans, and then into the wild expanses rendered in high definition. Through it all, the constant remains. A hero rising when needed, a princess using her wisdom to guide, a villain embodying the curse of malice, and a kingdom enduring through cycles. There is comfort in knowing that the legend will continue. Future games may reveal new eras, revisit old ones, or reimagine the structure entirely. But the essence, a balance of power, wisdom, and courage, will persist. The children who first listened to this legend under the glow of old televisions are now grown, yet the melody of the main theme still stirs something inside them. New players will find their own memories. The first time they tamed a wild horse in Breath of the Wild, the first time they solved a dungeon in Ocarina of Time, or the first time they learned to target an enemy in Z targeting. These individual memories join with the broader lore, creating a collective dream that spans decades. Reflecting on the complete history of Hyrule invites us to take a broader view of our own lives. We see that time branches in unexpected ways. Choices echo long after they are made. Cycles of struggle and peace repeat. Yet within those cycles, quiet acts of kindness and courage shape the future. A hero may be a sword-wielding adventurer, or a player who picks up a controller for the first time. A princess may be a reincarnated goddess, or a friend who guides us when we feel lost. A villain may be a demon king, or an obstacle we must overcome in our daily lives. The kingdom we protect may be as grand as Hyrule, or as intimate as our own sense of balance. As your eyes grow heavy, imagine the soft music of a fairy's fountain. The notes cascade gently, inviting calm. Picture the sun setting over Hyrule Field, casting long shadows of trees and turning the sky into shades of pink and lavender. Hear the distant call of a loftwing, the clink of a boomerang returning to a hand, the rustle of grass as Link walks toward a village. Think of the quiet moments, sitting on a raft watching the water ripple, listening to the wind in the reeds, climbing a mountain just to see the view at the top. These images are as much a part of the legend as any battle. They invite us to slow down, to breathe, and to know that the journey is what matters. And so, in this gentle twilight between waking and dreaming, let the history of Hyrule accompany you. Let the names, Din, Nayru, Furore, Hylia, Link, Zelda, Ganondorf, drift like stars across your mind. Let the melodies of Kokiri flutes, Shikatek beeps, and champion songs play softly in the background. Let the feeling of holding a controller, turning pages of a manual, or exploring an open world settle into your muscles. The legend has spanned centuries within its own world and decades in ours. It is patient. It waits until we are ready to return. For now, rest knowing that the cycle continues, that courage will rise again, and that the land of Hyrule, in its many forms, will always be there when you close your eyes and listen. The myths hint at a state before creation, a blank expanse sometimes called the still world, or the void. In these earliest whispers, the idea of null hovers at the edge of thought, a concept of a nothingness that existed before Din raised mountains and Furore planted trees. Null is not a character you fight or a creature you can name. It is a reminder that even the most vibrant worlds have their origins in silence. In some tellings, it is a swirling darkness held at bay by the light force. In others, it is a calm sea of possibility. What matters is that the goddesses saw this emptiness and chose to fill it with light, land, water, and life. When we close our eyes at night after a day of exploring fields and forests on screen, we experience our own kind of stillness. The hum of a console fades. The glow of the screen dims. And for a moment there is a quiet void in which images from the games drift like stars. This imaginative space is akin to the origin myth, a place where something beautiful can emerge from stillness. Over time, the lore would say that Null was sealed away by a set of rifts, kept closed by a piece of Triss, a concept that adds complexity to the mythos. But the essence is simple. Before there was Hyrule, there was potential, and from that potential came a world shaped by power, wisdom, and courage. The early tribes in the legends are more than names on a timeline. They represent different ways of life. The Farron people, often depicted as playful and curious forest dwellers, live in harmony with trees and streams. The Lanayru folk, linked to ancient robots and time-shift stones, build using the minerals of the desert and hold memories of oceans that receded. The Elden tribes, with their strong arms and resilient bodies, carve paths through volcanic rock and thrive on the heat of magma. When you imagine these peoples, Picture the colors of their environments: the deep greens and soft browns of Farron, the warm reds and yellows of Eldon, the shimmering blue crystal of Lanayru timeshift stones. Each group hears the call of the Triforce differently. Each group finds courage in its own way. These tribes also prefigure the later races that players would come to know intimately: the Korok, who sprout from forest spirits, the Gorons who chew rocks, the Rito who soar on the wind, the Zora who glide through water. When you think of the Great Plateau, you can see the remnants of all these cultures in the ruins and collapsed walls. Even as Hyrule evolves, the essence of these tribes remains, a reminder that civilizations rise, change, and leave traces for those who come after. In Skyward Sword, the details of the world are painted with gentle care. The floating island of Skyloft is not a bustling metropolis, but a quiet place of wooden bridges, small houses, and a central statue of the goddess. During the day, the surface glows with warm sunlight. At night, the sky is pierced by stars. Loft wings, large, colorful birds, circle the island with slow, graceful flaps of their wings. Their calls carry across the air like distant bells. The villagers celebrate an annual wing ceremony, their voices mixing with the sound of creaking wood and flapping feathers. Below the cloud layer, Farron Woods hums with insects and birds. The Skyview Temple is damp, filled with moss and faint rays of sunlight filtering through cracks. You can almost feel the humidity, smell the earth, hear the gentle drip of water echoing through corridors. In Eldon Volcano, the Earth Temple glows with orange and red. Pools of lava illuminate cave walls, and the rumble of the volcano underscores every step. Lanayru Desert is a sea of sand under the midday sun, yet when Link activates timeshift stones, the world blossoms into a lush mining facility with moving carts, turning gears, and electric fences. The transitions between eras are visual poetry: a barren desert flickering into a thriving industry, a lost temple transforming into a ship afloat on a shimmering ocean. The ancient cistern feels like a sacred sanctuary, with lotus pools and golden statues, hiding a dark underbelly full of skeletons and cursed water. The sandship creaks as it rides phantom waves in a desert sea, its masts casting long shadows on dunes. Each area is like a dream within a dream, layered with memory and possibility. Characters like Fi, an artificial intelligence bound to the goddess sword, speak with an otherworldly calmness, almost like a lullaby, while Groose provides comedic relief with his brash tone that eventually softens into respect. Girahim moves with theatrical flair, his tongue flicking in the air, his voice alternating between calm and unhinged. Impa, both young and old, guides Link with steady resolve, embodying duty passed through time. Demise, towering and implacable, is less a villain than a force of nature, a storm personified. The variety of experiences in Skyward Sword, from flying in open sky to battling in dark temples, makes the world feel both vast and intimately detailed. Skyward Sword also deepens the theme of reincarnation. The goddess Hylia choosing to become mortal sets a template for Zelda. She is born again and again, each time carrying memories like threads in a tapestry. Fi's farewell, when she returns to slumber within the Master Sword, is one of the series' most poignant moments. She speaks without emotion, yet evokes deep feeling. Her voice resonates in the blade, promising to aid future heroes. Link's journey in this game is not just about defeating Demise, but about forging a sword that will endure. Every flame you temper the goddess sword with, every trial you endure, imbues the blade with power. By the time you raise the completed Master Sword to the sky, you feel the weight of responsibility. In a quiet corner of Skyloft, an old woman near the sealed grounds turns out to be the Impa of the past, waiting decades for this moment. Time loops gently close, like circles drawn in sand. Even Groose, a bully at the start, grows to understand his place in the legend. He builds a catapult to aid in sealing demise and learns that heroism can be found in simple acts of support. The pacing of Skyward Sword, with its repeated visits to regions and incremental changes, mirrors the process of returning to familiar memories and noticing new details each time. By the end, as Link returns to the surface with Zelda, he is ready to found a kingdom. Yet he also knows that the story is far from over. The cycle will continue, the Master Sword will sleep, and new heroes will hear Fi's voice when the time comes. The Interloper War is one of those fragments of history that exists mostly in hints and inferences. The ancient Sheikah tribe, sworn to protect the royal family, once wielded powerful magic. According to the legends, a group of sorcerers coveted the Triforce and tried to use shadowy techniques to control the sacred realm. These sorcerers, sometimes called the Interlopers, were banished by the goddesses to a twilight dimension. This realm became known as the Twilight Realm, and its inhabitants evolved into the Twili, a peaceful people with luminous patterns on their skin and a quiet demeanor. The Twili's world is bathed in perpetual dusk, a light that is neither day nor night. When you play Twilight Princess, the transition into this dimension is marked by a shift in color palette, as if you are viewing the world through tinted glass. Midna, one of the most memorable companions in the series, emerges from this history. She initially appears impish and cryptic, floating in the air with her hand-like hair reaching out. But she is a ruler in exile, fighting to reclaim her throne from Zant, a usurper empowered by Ganondorf. The Interloper War's echoes are felt in the fused shadows, artifacts that hold immense power but also corrupt those who wield them. The light spirits of Hyrule, Ordona, Faron, Eldin, and Lanayru, guard the provinces and use their light to purge twilight. Wolf Link, transformed by the twilight, moves silently through this haze, using senses to follow invisible trails, hear hidden whispers, and dig beneath the surface. In Twilight Princess, Hyrule is expansive and realistic. The fields stretch far, dotted with windmills, ruins, and grazing goats. Ordon Village is peaceful, filled with simple houses, a goat herder named Orden, and a sense of community. The forest temple is overgrown, with monkeys swinging from vines and a giant baboon commanding them. The Goron mines are hot and industrial, with iron boots clanging on metal grates and magnets pulling Link along ceilings. Lake Hylia is wide and open, with a tall tower rising from its center. The lakebed temple beneath it is full of shifting currents and rotating platforms. Arbiter's Grounds, deep in the desert, is haunted by ghosts and lined with ancient statues holding lanterns. Snow Peak Ruins are a dilapidated mansion covered in snow, where Yetis serve pumpkin soup and cannonballs roll down halls. The Temple of Time, seen as a ruin in the past, is revisited in pristine form, its ancient puzzles intact. The city in the sky floats like a dream, with rotating fans and flying creatures carrying Link between platforms. Throughout these places, the twilight persists as an ever-present tension. Midna's gradual transformation from sarcastic guide to caring friend echoes the player's own growing attachment to the world. When she leaves at the end, returning to the Twilight Realm and shattering the mirror so that no one can misuse its power, there is a melancholy sense of separation, a door closing between dimensions. The Minish Cap presents Hyrule on a smaller scale, both literally and figuratively. At the Picori Festival, townspeople gather in colorful stalls, children run with balloons, and merchants from neighboring lands come to trade. The Minish, also known as Picori, are tiny beings invisible to adults. They emerge through portals in tree trunks or behind bricks when they wish to help humans. Link's hat in this story is actually Eslo, a Minish sage transformed into a bird-like cap. Eslo speaks with the weary tone of someone who has seen generations of heroes come and go. Vati, once Eslo's apprentice, stole the mage's cap and used its power to become a wind sorcerer. His eyes narrow into red slits and his purple cape billows dramatically. Throughout the game, Link shrinks to Minish size to enter little doorways carved into walls, climb up books on library shelves, and run through gusts of water like waterfalls. The design evokes the wonder of childhood, where common objects become vast landscapes. In the Deepwood Shrine, giant barrels spin like mountains turning. In the Cave of Flames, molten rocks tower overhead like boulders. In the Fortress of Winds, fans blow so strong that Link glides across gaps on a gust jar, a tool that sucks in air and shoots it back out. The Kinstone system encourages players to fuse random stone pieces with villagers, unlocking new caves, treasures, or golden enemies. It gives the feeling that the world is interconnected, that talking to someone in Hyrule Town can open a path in Lake Hylia. The art style is bright, with thick outlines and expressive faces. The soundtrack hums with cheerful flutes and playful percussion. By the end, when Vati is sealed inside the Four Sword and the Mage's Cap is restored, the game leaves you with a sense of having been both tiny and larger than life. The Four Swords concept takes the idea of teamwork and makes it literal. When Link draws the Four Sword, he splits into 4 versions of himself, each wearing a different color tunic. The quartet must cooperate to press switches, carry heavy blocks, and defeat bosses that require simultaneous actions. Each dungeon is a variation on familiar themes: forest, cave, fortress, but designed with multiple players in mind. The dynamic invites either real friends or an imaginary sense of camaraderie. If you are playing alone, you switch between links, watching the others stand idly by or automatically follow. There is a certain sweetness to the way they line up to push a block, or how they form a totem to reach a high lever. The villain, Vati again, escapes from his seal in the Four Sword Sanctuary, prompting another quest to trap him. The GBA version introduces randomly generated stages, so each run feels like a new adventure, like dreams that shift slightly each time you revisit them. The music includes cheerful trumpets and syncopated rhythms, echoing the energetic movement of 4 heroes. The Four Sword itself is a symbol of division and unity, splitting the self to achieve more than one could alone. When the links merge back together and raise the sword, there is a feeling of wholeness restored. Ocarina of Time remains one of the series' most foundational experiences, and its details are worth savoring slowly. The game begins in Kokiri Forest, where children never grow up. The great Deku Tree's bark creaks as he speaks, leaves rustling overhead. Navi's voice chimes like a small bell as she urges Link to wake up. The interior of the Deku Tree is cavernous and damp, with vines climbing walls and spiders scurrying along ceilings. When you jump down from one of the tree's higher branches into a web, there is a satisfying thump and rip. Leaving the forest, you first step into Hyrule Field, an expansive plain dotted with trees and grazing cows. The castle town is lively, with market stalls and dogs wandering about. Watching the drawbridge raise at sunset is one of those images that sticks with you. The thud of wooden planks, the bright orange sky fading to purple. Each temple in Ocarina of Time conveys a distinct mood. Dodongo's cavern is filled with the sound of rolling boulders and the rumble of a giant dinosaur emerging from lava. Jabu Jabu's belly pulses like a living creature. Platforms gently bob up and down with the creature's heartbeat. The forest temple introduces a tone of eerie melancholy. Overgrown corridors twist back on themselves. The Poe sisters dance with lanterns, their laughs echoing through halls. The fire temple's deep drums and chanting create a ritualistic atmosphere, while the water temple requires careful attention to raising and lowering water levels. The shadow temple is full of dark whispers, invisible scythes, and walls that appear only under the lens of truth. The spirit temple is hot and quiet, with sun shining through perforated stone and a sense of ancient royalty lingering in the air. Throughout these trials, Sheik appears to teach songs. The melodies you play on the ocarina feel like magic spells that truly alter time and space. The Song of Storms summons rain that cleanses wells. The Bolero of Fire feels like the rhythm of a heartbeat in a volcano. the final climb to Ganon's castle, is accompanied by an organ's ominous melody. Inside, each section of the tower is decorated in motifs from previous temples, reminding you of your journey. When you finally confront Ganondorf, his cape swirling and his laughter bouncing off stone, he hurls bolts of light at you across a table. After defeating him, the castle crumbles, but there is no sudden rush of action. The game maintains a deliberate pace. You guide Zelda out, with flames rising slowly around you, corridors collapsing methodically. When Ganon rises from the rubble, his beast form fills the screen. The fight is fought in a circle of flames under a burning sky. It ends when you plunge the Master Sword into his skull, sealing him away. Yet there is a bittersweet feeling when Zelda sends you back to your childhood. The timeline splits here. In one branch, adult Link's world is left without a hero. In another, the boy returns with knowledge of the future. That division echoes the Four Swords splitting, the gods splitting of the Triforce, and the fracturing of the story into multiple lines. Within Ocarina of Time are many quiet side stories. A man in Kakariko Village sits by a windmill, playing a hurdy-gurdy and obsessively cranking the wheel. His song becomes the Song of Storms, which he claims you taught him in the future, though you are just learning it from him now. A woman searches for her missing cuckoos, and you gather them, one by one, listening to the soft cluck of their wings. An old lady sells you masks, which you deliver to children and guards, seeing how their reactions change as you put on different faces. The Bigoron sword quest involves trading a prescription to Azora, ferrying eye drops across Hyrule Field, and waiting for a giant Goron to forge a blade that never breaks. Each of these tasks requires patience. Time passes as you wait for seeds to grow, or for the sun to rise. The sense of scale is not just geographic, but temporal. The lens of truth reveals hidden walls and floors, letting you see what is usually invisible, reminding you that there are always secrets under the surface. The ocarina itself is an instrument of memory. When you hear Saria's song, you may recall sitting with your own friends, playing a tune on a toy flute. When you return to the forest as an adult and find that your childhood friends no longer recognize you, the feeling is a mix of sadness and acceptance. Ocarina of Time teaches that time moves forward, that childhood innocence cannot be reclaimed, yet it also shows that memories remain. Majora's Mask is set in Termina, a world parallel to Hyrule. From the moment Link chases the Skull Kid into the Lost Woods and falls into darkness, the atmosphere feels different. Clock Town is the hub, its clock tower looming like an anchor in the sky. Over 3 days, people go about their routines. Postal workers deliver letters, carpenters build a carnival stage, lovers exchange hidden messages. The moon hangs overhead, its grimacing face inching closer each day, cracks and teeth visible in detail. The ticking of the clock, the chime at each hour, and the sight of the 4 giants in the distance create a constant awareness of time. The Song of Healing transforms troubled spirits into masks. Each transformation is preceded by a surge of swirling colors, then a calm moment where Link holds a mask to his face and becomes a Deku, Goron, or Zora. As a Deku scrub, you hop across lily pads and spit bubbles. As a Goron, you roll like a boulder, the sound of your stone body echoing. As a Zora, you swim in loops, leaving trails of bubbles. Each form has its own physicality, its own soundscape. The Woodfall region is covered in swamp water and giant lilies. The music box house in Akana Canyon plays a lullaby that calms redeads. Snowhead's blizzard roars, but when you restore spring, birds chirp and water flows freely. The Great Bay's ocean glistens under sunlight, yet at night it feels eerie and empty. Ikana Valley is filled with ruins, ghosts, and regret. The Anju and Cafe quest, one of the game's most memorable, involves delivering letters, waiting at inn rooms, and helping 2 lovers reunite before the moon falls. You feel the weight of the story because you play it over multiple cycles, learning patterns and planning your actions. The Happy Mask. Salesman's smile is unsettling, his eyes closed as he sways to unseen music. The Skull Kid's laughter is high and childlike, but his eyes glow with malice. At the end, after you call the four giants with the oath to order, they march across the land to hold up the moon. The final battle takes place inside the moon's serene meadow, where children wearing masks ask you to play hide and seek. When you defeat Majora's Mask, it twists and contorts, its eye beams reflecting off your shield. The conclusion is quiet. The carnival continues, the sun rises, and Link rides away on Epona. Termina exists in memory like a dream you half remember, filled with faces and places that fade as you wake. The great sea of the Wind Waker feels like a lullaby in itself. You stand on the King of Red Lions, a talking boat with a gentle voice, and you watch the horizon rise and fall with waves. The water's surface shifts from deep blue to turquoise and back, reflections of clouds drifting across. You plot your course on a map, adjusting the Wind Waker baton to change wind direction. The islands you visit are small jewels. Outset Island with its grassy slopes and simple houses. Windfall Island with its windmill-colored roofs and lively townspeople. Dragon, Roost with a smoking volcano and the Rito tribe soaring around. On some islands, you find nothing more than a puzzle and a chest. On others, a fairy queen bestows an upgrade. The Forsaken Fortress is dark and imposing, its spotlights sweeping across walls. Inside, moblins patrol with heavy footsteps, their pig noses snorting. The early portion of the game tasks you with sneaking past them, hiding in barrels to avoid detection. When you return later with the Master Sword, the fortress feels different. The music shifts, the path is more straightforward, the sense of empowerment is stronger. The dungeons in the Wind Waker are airy and bright. Dragon Roost Cavern is filled with flowing lava and bird statues. The boss, Gohma, lumbers under Valu's tail. The Forbidden Woods are lush, with giant flowers that bloom into trampolines and plant stalks that twist like vines. The Tower of the Gods rises from the ocean in a rainstorm, a test created by the gods to find the hero. You ring bells and ride elevators, listening to choral music that echoes in the vast chamber. Under the sea, the remnants of old Hyrule sit in still water. The castle is frozen in time. Guards stand mid-stride, flags ripple motionless. When you draw the Master Sword from the pedestal, the statues awaken. The Earth Temple is dark and filled with cursed fog. You guide Medley, a Rito harpist, who reflects light with her harp to dispel the curse. The Wind Temple is green and breezy. You guide Makar, a Korok, who plants seeds that grow into platforms. The DS sequels, Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks, carry the Wind Waker's aesthetic into different mechanics. Phantom Hourglass has Link sailing a steamship across smaller, segmented seas. The Temple of the Ocean King is revisited repeatedly, with a safe zone that expands as you obtain new items. You draw a path for the boomerang on the touchscreen. You blow into the microphone to extinguish candles. Spirit Tracks sets the game in a land where trains run along rails. Link is a train engineer wearing a conductor's cap. He rides across plains and snowfields, stopping at stations where he delivers cargo and passengers. The dungeons incorporate the spirit flute, an instrument you play by blowing into the microphone and sliding your stylus across holes. In both games, the tone remains gentle and playful. The sense of traveling across open space is scaled down, but the feeling of discovery persists. Twilight Princess offers a different mood, darker, more somber. The field is expansive. The color palette is muted. Link starts as a ranch hand, herding goats into barns while the sun sets over rolling hills. When twilight envelops the land, everything takes on a golden hue. In his wolf form, Link communicates with animals. Cats speak in lazy drawls. Squirrels chatter nervously. Insects hum quietly. Midna rides on his back, her laughter soft yet tinged with mischief. The dungeons are intricate. Arbiter's Grounds houses a spinner item that lets you Glide along tracks carved into walls, the whirring sound echoing as you leap across gaps. Snow Peak ruins feel like a lived-in home. A Yeti couple invites you in, offers soup, and asks you to retrieve their lost mirror shard. The Temple of Time is a callback to Ocarina of Time, but here you lift statues with the Dominion Rod, placing them on pressure plates. The City in the Sky is a network of floating buildings and wind turbines. You use the double claw shot to swing from target to target, your chain clinking softly. The final battle against Ganondorf spans multiple stages. First on horseback across Hyrule Field, then inside the castle's throne room, and finally in a sword duel on an open plain. The outcome is the same as ever. Ganondorf is defeated, but the fight feels personal. Ganondorf looks you in the eye, his hair blowing in the wind, his blade heavy and deliberate. When Midna shatters the mirror, the moment is silent, except for the sound of glass cracking. She faces you with her true form, a regal Twily with long hair and a gentle smile, and you know you will not see her again. A Link to the Past, originally released on the Super Nintendo, establishes a dual-world structure that many later games echo. The light world is bright and colorful with recognizable locales, Kakariko Village with its houses and well, the Lost Woods with its mist and maze of trees, Death Mountain with winding paths and falling rocks. The dark world is the Golden Land twisted by Ganon's evil. Here the sky is purple, the music is tense, and the environment is warped. Trees have faces, animals become monsters, and people are turned into creatures representing their desires or fears. The dungeons are numerous and varied. The Eastern Palace with its patterned floors and Armos statues, the Desert Palace filled with flowing sand, the Tower of Hera with its vertical ascent and whirling obstacles. After obtaining the Master Sword in the Lost Woods, you enter Hyrule Castle and rescue Princess Zelda, only to watch as she is later pulled into the Dark World. The second half of the game involves retrieving 7 crystals to free the maidens. Each temple offers a new challenge. The Swamp Palace uses water-level mechanics, the Skull Woods are split across surface and underground, Misery Mire is full of moving tiles and slugs. Turtle Rock is a maze of pipes and platforms. The final climb up Ganon's tower requires using almost every tool you've gathered. When you finally face Ganon in the pyramid, his trident crackles with magic. The battle is punctuated by the sound of your sword hitting his cloak, the echo of his laughter, and the hum of the golden arrows you shoot to weaken him. Defeating him restores the Golden Land, but the game leaves you with the knowledge that such peace may not last forever. Link's awakening takes place on Koholint Island, a place that exists only in a dream. When Link's ship wrecks and he washes ashore, he is awakened by Marin, whose singing voice sounds like a hymn. She dreams of leaving the island and seeing what lies beyond the horizon. The island is filled with quirky characters. A chain chomp named Bow Wow that you take for a walk. A shopkeeper who eyes you warily as you browse. A talking bird atop a mountain. A ghost who asks you to take him to his old house so he can see it one last time. The dungeons are called Tail Cave, Bottle Grotto, Key Cavern, Angler's Tunnel, Catfish's Maw, Face Shrine, Eagle's Tower, and Turtle Rock. Each houses an instrument with a melodic name: Full Moon Cello, Conch Horn, Sea Harp, Surf Harp, Wind Marimba, Choral Triangle, Organ of Evening Calm, and Thunder Drum. When you play these instruments together, they awaken the wind fish, a whale sleeping inside a giant egg. Along the way, you find a side-scrolling sequence reminiscent of Super Mario Bros., a cameo by Kirby as an enemy, and other playful crossovers. The art in the Game Boy original is monochrome and simple, while the Switch remake uses toy-like dioramas. The ending reveals that the island disappears when the windfish awakens. Marin appears in the sky as a seagull, her wish to see the world granted in a symbolic way. The game invites introspection about dreams, imagination, and the temporary nature of experiences. When you lay down at night, the feeling of being in a place that vanishes at dawn resonates. Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages, released on the Game Boy Color, are interconnected stories that can be played in either order. In Seasons, you meet Din, an oracle who dances in a clearing. In Ages, you meet Nayru, a singer. Each game focuses on a mechanic, changing seasons with the Rod of Seasons and traveling through time with the Harp of Ages. Holodrum, the setting of seasons, shifts from blooming spring to fiery summer to crisp autumn to snowy winter at the flick of a rod. Overworld puzzles depend on these changes. Vines grow only in summer, lakes freeze only in winter. Labrina, the setting of ages, moves between present and past. Ruins in the present are pristine in the past. Trees you plant in one time bear fruit in the other. The interplay between times reveals that small actions have lasting consequences. Collectible rings offer minor benefits, encouraging exploration. After finishing one game, you obtain a password to start the other with additional content, culminating in a final battle against Twin Rova, the twin witches who serve Ganon. The art and music use limited hardware to deliver distinct moods. Seasons is bright and upbeat. Ages is more somber and contemplative. Together they celebrate the idea that two stories can complement each other, like the dual branches of the timeline. A Link Between Worlds returns to the dual-world concept with Hyrule, a kingdom mirroring Hyrule. Link discovers he can merge into walls as a painting, sliding along surfaces like a tapestry come to life. This mechanic opens up puzzles that require thinking in 2 dimensions. A narrow crack in the wall becomes a pathway. A mural becomes a bridge. Ravio, a rabbit-masked merchant, rents you items, letting you tackle dungeons in any order. Hilda, the Princess of Hyrule, initially seems supportive, but later reveals that she wishes to save her collapsing kingdom by stealing the Triforce. Her advisor, Yuga, merges villains and sages into paintings. When you step through cracks in walls, you enter Hyrule, where familiar locations are twisted. Kakariko becomes Thieves' Town. The desert becomes a swamp. The soundtrack uses familiar motifs with a minor twist, adding a sense of unease. When you finally collect Hyrule's pieces of the Triforce and wish for the kingdom's restoration, you see Hilda and Ravio stand under their own golden relic, a reversed Triforce, symbolizing that balance can be achieved through wisdom, courage, and power in any order. The ending credits show Hyrule and Hyrule as mirror images, 2 pendulums swinging in harmony. Triforce Heroes takes a playful approach by focusing on fashion and teamwork. The kingdom of Hytopia is cursed when Princess Styla's fashion sense is ridiculed and she is forced to wear an ugly jumpsuit. A witch named Lady Maud has stolen the fashion world's joy. Link teams up with 2 other heroes, each wearing a different color, to venture into the Drablands, a series of costume-themed zones. The arenas are designed for 3 players. You must stack totem-like to reach switches, throw each other across gaps, and coordinate attacks. Outfits grant special abilities. A cheerleader costume causes hearts to appear more often. A ninja GI allows silent movement. The art style is similar to A Link Between Worlds, with bright colors and thick outlines. The tone is light-hearted and humorous, but the core theme, working together to restore joy, is universal. It suggests that even in a world filled with epic battles, there is room for fun and fashion. The original Legend of Zelda, on the NES, invites players into a world without hand-holding. The screen opens with a cave and an old man's simple phrase, "It's dangerous to go alone. Take this." He hands you a wooden sword, and you set out. The overworld is open, dotted with trees, lakes, and rocks. Dungeons are scattered throughout, their entrances hidden behind secret walls or under bushes. Bombing a cliff might reveal a shop. Burning a bush might uncover a staircase. Each dungeon has a distinct shape on the map: an eagle, a moon, a lion. The enemies are varied. Octoroks spit rocks, moblins throw spears, Darknuts raise shields. The game's music is iconic. The overworld theme pulses with energy, while the dungeon theme is minor and tense. Because you can tackle dungeons in different orders, your experience may vary. When you defeat the 8 bosses and reassemble the pieces of the Triforce of Wisdom, you rescue Princess Zelda from Ganon in his blue pig form. The second quest rearranges the entire map and dungeons, surprising players who thought they knew everything. The simplicity of the graphics and sound leaves space for imagination. You project your own sense of scale onto the tiny sprites. The effect is akin to reading a fairy tale. The outline is provided, but the details fill in your mind. The Adventure of Link, the direct sequel, experiments with side-scrolling action and RPG elements. The overworld is still top-down, but towns and caves shift to a side view. Link gains experience points and levels up his health, attack, and magic. He learns spells like Shield, Jump, and Life from town sages. Enemies drop experience bags. Iron knuckles block your attacks with precision. The palaces are labyrinthine, with elevator shafts, hidden chambers, and boss rooms. The music is fast-paced, with drums driving the action. The story is minimal, but hints at a broader lore. Princess Zelda has been put into an eternal sleep by a magician. Ganon's followers seek to revive him using Link's blood. Link must place crystals in 6 palaces to unlock the Great Palace and claim the Triforce of Courage. The Great Palace itself is a gauntlet of tough enemies and platforming challenges, culminating in a battle against Thunderbird and then against Dark Link, a shadow reflection of yourself. The fight with Dark Link is an iconic moment. You face your mirror image with the same moves and weapon. After you triumph, you stand before 3 golden triangles as they unite. And Zelda awakens. The difficulty of the game may have caused frustration for many players, but overcoming it brings a sense of accomplishment that lingers, like finishing a challenging book. The timeline of Hyrule has long been a subject of debate among fans. For years, the order of games was speculated upon, with various theories about where each story fit. Some thought there was one linear line. Others posited multiple branches. In 2011, Nintendo published Hyrule Historia, officially setting forth a timeline that splits after Ocarina of Time into 3 branches: the child timeline, the adult timeline, and the fallen hero timeline. This revelation created as many discussions as it resolved. People noted contradictions, debated whether the timeline was meant to be taken seriously, and wondered how newer games would fit. The existence of the timeline itself shows that the creators think of Hyrule as a cohesive world, even when telling stories that stand alone. The idea of a hero reincarnating across eras, a princess inheriting wisdom, and a villain returning with relentless ambition gives the series a mythic structure. The timeline encourages players to see patterns: the repeated use of the Master Sword, the naming of villages after sages, the presence of certain items like the hookshot or the mirror shield. It also invites a playful approach. If you prefer to imagine that all games exist in a vague mythic past without specific sequence, that view is valid too. As with many legends, the telling evolves with each retelling. Spin-off games and adaptations show how flexible the Zelda universe is. Hyrule Warriors combines characters and locations from across the series into large-scale battles. In the original Hyrule Warriors, you command Link, Zelda, Impa, and others against hordes of enemies, using combos to defeat dozens at a time. The story is framed around the sorceress Siaya, who becomes enamored with Link and splits the timelines, causing eras to collide. Age of Calamity, a later spin-off, focuses on the period 100 years before Breath of the Wild. It lets you control the champions in battle, see their interactions, and witness an alternate version of the Calamity. Cadence of Hyrule crosses The Legend of Zelda with Crypt of the Necrodancer, a rhythm game. In Cadence, you move and attack on beats of the music, using the series' melodies in remixed form. The result is both challenging and hypnotic. Missing a beat feels like misstepping in a dance. The 1989 cartoon, airing as part of the Super Mario Bros. Super Show, portrays Link with the catchphrase, "Well, excuse me, princess." It is lighthearted and often silly, but it introduced many young viewers to Hyrule's characters. The Philips CDI games, Faces of Evil and Wand of Gamelon, are infamous for their awkward animations and voice acting. They were produced without Nintendo's direct oversight due to a contractual obligation, and they remain curiosities for collectors. Each spin-off, whether beloved or derided, adds to the texture of the broader legend. They show that Hyrule can be interpreted through different genres and mediums, yet the core elements, hero, princess, villain, relic, remain recognizable. Music has always been central to the Legend of Zelda experience. The simple beeps of the NES gave way to richer melodies on the Super Nintendo. The Ocarina of Time introduced interactive music, letting players perform songs that affected gameplay. The Wind Waker uses a conductor's baton to sway the wind. Skyward Sword has you strumming the goddess's harp. Majora's Mask features masks that transform your instrument's timbre. Concerts have celebrated this music outside of the games. The 25th Anniversary Symphony, for instance, toured the world with orchestral arrangements of themes like The Ballad of the Windfish, Gerudo Valley, and Great Fairy's Fountain. Audiences sat in concert halls, hearing the melodies that once emanated from small speakers now played by strings, woodwinds, and brass. The emotional resonance was palpable. People clutched hands, cried softly, or closed their eyes, letting memories surface. In 2017, the Symphony of the Goddesses continued this tradition, adding music from Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword. These concerts underscore that the music is not just accompaniment, but a vital part of the storytelling. When you think back to exploring Hyrule, you may recall not just the sight of mountains, but the melody that played as you approached them. Nostalgia is tied to physical objects and environments. Many players recall blowing into NES cartridges to remove dust, sliding them into gray consoles, and pressing the power button with hopeful anticipation. They remember reading instruction manuals with hand-drawn art that sparked imagination. Guides published by Nintendo Power or Prima offered maps and tips, their pages worn and marked with notes. The gold-colored cartridge of The Legend of Zelda gleamed like treasure on a shelf. The clamshell cases of Game Boy games clicked open like small chests. Even the paper smell of a new game box evokes a specific era. Plugging a console into a CRT television meant twisting coaxial cables and adjusting dials. The picture might flicker, the colors might be off, but the experience was yours. As technology advanced, the ways we interact with games changed. Digital downloads replaced boxes, HDMI cables replaced RF switches, but the feel of sitting cross-legged on the floor with a controller remains. Late-night sessions, when you were told to go to bed but snuck in one more dungeon, stay vivid. The low hum of a console's fan, the glow under a closed door, the muffled sound of a parent's footsteps. These sensory details intertwine with the games themselves. Breath of the Wild reinvented Hyrule as a vast open world. The Great Plateau, your starting area, teaches you how to climb, cook, and survive. The air is crisp. The grass sways in the wind. Distant towers beckon. You can see nearly everywhere you will later go from this first plateau. Snow-capped Hebra Mountains, the fiery Eldin Volcano, the lush Farron Jungle, the dusty Gerudo Desert. The Sheikah Slate becomes your companion. Its runes, magnesis, stasis, cryonis, and remote bombs allow you to manipulate the environment. Shrines dot the landscape, each containing a puzzle or combat trial. The chime when you complete one is soft and rewarding, like finishing a chapter in a book. Korok seeds are hidden under rocks, inside tree hollows, or under swirling leaves. Each time you find one, a small creature appears and offers a seed with a musical cue. Cooking involves mixing meats, vegetables, spices, and herbs in a pot. The resulting dish is announced by a jingle, and the meals restore health or provide buffs. The weather matters. Rain makes surfaces slippery. Lightning strikes metal. Heat requires elixirs. Cold demands warm clothes. When you approach an enemy camp at night, you hear bokoblins snoring. If you knock their weapons out of reach, they scramble, panicking. The story of Breath of the Wild unfolds in memories. 100 years earlier, the champions, Mifa of the Zora, Daruk of the Gorons, Rivali of the Rito, and Urbosa of the Gerudo, piloted giant divine beasts. Zelda, struggling to awaken her sealing power, recorded her thoughts. Calamity, Ganon, a swirling mass of malice, corrupted the guardians and the beasts, resulting in Hyrule's fall. Link was gravely injured and placed in the Shrine of Resurrection, sleeping for a century. When he awakens, he is alone. As you activate towers and find memories, you piece together the past. Mifa speaks gently, healing wounds with her grace. Daruk laughs heartily, slapping his belly. Rivali is confident, nearly arrogant. Urbosa is regal, telling bedtime stories to Zelda. King Rome appears as an old man until he reveals his identity, his voice serious but kind. When you free each divine beast, the spirit of its champion speaks to you. They watch from above, their silhouettes like stars in the sky. The final confrontation with Calamity Ganon takes place in the ruins of Hyrule Castle. The castle is a labyrinth of corridors, guard towers, and dining halls. Malice seeps from cracks. The music combines quiet piano with sudden choral bursts. Inside, you find weapon caches, diaries, and rooms where Zelda once studied ancient technology. When you reach the sanctum, Ganon emerges as a beast of pure energy, his body composed of swirling limbs and glowing eyes. After you weaken him, he escapes to the field outside, where he transforms into Dark Beast Ganon, a gigantic boar galloping across Hyrule Field. You ride your horse and shoot glowing points on his body, guided by Zelda's light. After you shoot the final point, his body disintegrates into golden strands, and he is sealed. You stand with Zelda in the morning light, birds chirping. The world is free, yet it is scarred. You can continue playing, exploring, and helping rebuild villages. The sense of open possibility remains. You look out across the land and realize that your adventure may be over, but your journey is not. Tears of the Kingdom expands on this foundation. It begins with Link and Zelda exploring tunnels beneath Hyrule Castle, investigating a strange gloom that sickens people and deteriorates buildings. They find murals depicting an ancient king, Rauru, and his queen Sonia, who founded Hyrule. They encounter a mummified corpse with a secret stone embedded in its forehead. When the corpse awakens as Ganondorf, the ground shudders. Ganondorf's malice shatters the Master Sword. His gloom destroys Link's arm, and Zelda falls into a pit. Link, nearly consumed, is saved by Rauru's spirit, who grafts his own arm to Link's body. Link wakes on a sky island, with clouds below and an expanse above. The new abilities, Ultra Hand Fuse, Recall, and Ascend, invite creative play. Ultra Hand allows you to pick up objects, rotate them, and attach them to other objects. You build bridges across chasms, craft rafts with fans, assemble flying machines from wings, fans, and batteries. Fuse lets you attach materials to weapons or shields. A stick becomes a spear if fused with another. A rock on a stick becomes a hammer. A puff shroom on a shield creates a smokescreen. Recall rewinds the movement of objects. You can step on a fallen boulder, recall its fall, and ride it back up to the sky. Ascend allows you to swim through ceilings, emerging on the other side. The flexibility of these abilities turns the entire world into a puzzle. You see a minecart track and think of building a contraption to ride it. You see a chasm and think of bridging it with logs. You see enemies and think of creative ways to use the environment. The world is layered vertically. Sky islands float at different altitudes, some lush, with zonai architecture, others barren. The depths lie beneath the surface, accessible through chasms that exhale gloom. Down there, darkness envelops you. Bubble frogs croak in caves. Gloom puddles sap your health. Monsters glow red. Light roots grow in the depths, their blossoms illuminating areas when activated, mirroring shrines on the surface. Exploring the depths feels like exploring the unknown, with the constant tension of gloom, damage. The story weaves between past and present. Zelda is sent back in time to the era of Rauru and Sonia. She learns of their battle against Ganondorf. Rauru is a Zonai with goat-like horns. His sister, Mineru, constructs the first giant mech. Sonia controls time, and her death at Ganondorf's hands is a turning point. To fight him, Zelda becomes a dragon, sacrificing her humanity by swallowing her secret stone. In the present, Link gathers new sages: Tulin of the Rito, Yunobo of the Gorons, Sidon of the Zora, Riju of the Gerudo, and Mineru as a construct. Each has their own temple: the Wind Temple nestled inside a storm cloud above the Hebra Mountains, the Fire Temple in the crater of Death Mountain, the Water Temple above a sky island, the Lightning Temple in the Gerudo Desert, and the Spirit Temple in the depths. Each temple plays with verticality. You ascend through swirling winds, ride mine carts over lava, float on bubbles in the sky, solve puzzles with electricity, and pilot a giant construct. The final battle occurs under Hyrule Castle in a cavern carved by gloom. Ganondorf has taken the form of a powerful Gerudo warrior, his hair long, his laugh echoing. He uses gloom clones and swirling blades. When you weaken him, he swallows his secret stone and becomes the demon dragon, circling above the castle. You leap from your construct and dive after him, riding the wind around his massive body. Zelda, still in dragon form, appears. Together, you attack his glowing scales until he is defeated. After Ganondorf is sealed, Zelda returns to human form, and peace begins anew. The Sky Islands remain, the depths remain, and Hyrule is layered with history. Tears of the Kingdom also explores the founding of Hyrule. Rauru and Sonia's marriage unites the Zonai, a mysterious race with technology and architecture, reminiscent of Mesoamerican designs. And the humans. They establish a kingdom based on the Triforce. The game shows that the Master Sword is forged with the arm of a Zonai, imbuing it with new energy. It ties together ancient myths with present struggles. It also explores the Yiga clan, a breakaway group from the Sheikah who embrace chaos. They set up camps, plan ambushes, and dress in red and black. When you infiltrate their hideouts, you hear their grunts and see bananas hanging from ropes. Collectively, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom offer players an experience of quiet exploration. They invite you to wander off the beaten path, climb to a high point to watch the sunrise, or sail on a homemade raft across a lake at dusk. They incorporate cooking, gliding, and building, activities that are not urgent yet feel meaningful. Even in the midst of battle, there is time to pause and listen to a bird call or watch leaves swirl. When you finish these games, you may find yourself thinking about them in random moments. The way the light changed over a field, the sound of wind in pines, the satisfaction of solving a shrine puzzle. These memories join those of older games, layering like the depths, surface, and sky. Development history adds another dimension to the legend. Shigeru Miyamoto, one of Nintendo's most influential designers, created the original game in part out of his childhood experiences exploring caves and forests around Kyoto. He has spoken of his sense of wonder when he discovered a hidden lake or a shrine among trees. Takashi Tezuka, inspired by fantasy literature like The Lord of the Rings, helped craft the narrative. The Famicom disk system allowed the game to save progress, making a sprawling adventure possible. The disk system's extra audio channel gave the soundtrack a richness not found in the NES version, with wave-like sounds mimicking flutes and drums. The decision to name the princess Zelda came from a suggestion by a PR planner who admired F. Scott Fitzgerald's wife, Zelda Fitzgerald. The gold cartridge of the NES release was a marketing stroke, drawing attention on store shelves. Later games leveraged new technology. A Link to the Past used Mode 7 effects. Ocarina of Time pioneered lock-on targeting. The Wind Waker employed cell shading. Skyward Sword used motion controls. Breath of the Wild implemented a chemistry engine governing physics and environmental interactions. Each innovation served to deepen immersion. Outside of mainline games, the series has inspired comics, manga, and artwork. Akira Himekawa's manga adaptations retell the stories with added character moments. In one, Link from Ocarina of Time raises Epona from a foal, gently brushing her mane and learning her moods. In another, Link from Twilight Princess grapples with self-doubt, only to be reassured by a wise wolf. These manga present familiar plots, but slow down to dwell on emotions. They include scenes of characters sharing meals, laughing or grieving, scenes that might be implied but not shown in the games. The artwork ranges from energetic action to soft, painterly moments. Fan art and fan fiction have long thrived. Artists depict Zelda characters in various styles, from watercolor scenes of Link napping under a tree to pixel art of the Dark World. Musicians compose covers and remixes, adding personal touches to themes. Cosplayers sew tunics, armor, and dresses, embodying their favorite characters at conventions. These creative expressions show that the legend resonates beyond the screen. Looking at the broader myth, the concept of Triforce resonates with many cultures' ideas of balance. Power, wisdom, and courage can be seen as aspects of living a balanced life. Too much power without wisdom leads to tyranny. Too much wisdom without courage leads to inaction. Too much courage without power leads to futility. The stories in The Legend of Zelda show characters grappling with these virtues. Ganondorf often embodies power unchecked, using it to dominate. Zelda embodies wisdom, guiding others and protecting knowledge. Link embodies courage, facing danger, even when afraid. Side characters represent these traits too. Tetra, the pirate captain who is actually Zelda, is bold and strategic. Midna is clever and resilient. Fi speaks in percentages and probabilities but shows devotion. Mipha is gentle and brave in her own quiet way. These characters teach that bravery is not just swinging a sword. Sometimes it is tending to a sick friend, asking for help, or apologizing for a mistake. The games convey that wisdom can come from experience, from listening to others, from paying attention to nature. When Link stops to catch a firefly in Twilight Princess or picks herbs in Breath of the Wild, he demonstrates respect for small things. In a world filled with spectacular battles, the series reminds players that kindness and care matter. The timeline debates aside, the legend endures because it is both anchored and fluid. It has a foundation in the myth of the Triforce and the cycle of reincarnation, but it allows for endless variations. It adapts to new technologies, new storytelling approaches, and new audiences. Whether you first played on a family TV in the 1980s or on a handheld device on a train in the 2010s, whether you prefer the dark tone of Twilight Princess or the bright palette of Wind Waker, you are part of a community connected by shared memories. Discussions about the best dungeon, the hardest boss, the most emotional moment are not arguments, but exchanges of stories. When you recall getting lost in the Lost Woods or finding a hidden seashell on Koholint, you share something with someone you may never meet. The legend of Hyrule thus becomes a shared dream. It is passed down, like a story told by a campfire. It evolves with each telling. It comforts, teaches, and inspires. Each time you return to it, you see something new, just as the sages of Hyrule looked into the sacred realm and saw reflections of themselves. As the story continues, new games will undoubtedly bring new regions, characters, and mechanics. Perhaps we will learn more about the ancient Zonai, the origins of the Sheikah, or the future of Hyrule beyond the events of Tears of the Kingdom. Perhaps we will visit lands far from Hyrule's borders, meeting unfamiliar tribes and facing unknown challenges. Wherever the legend goes, it will carry its core, a harmony between power, wisdom, and courage. It will invite players to explore, to listen, to learn. It will inspire them to find beauty in the quiet moments between epic battles. When you finish watching a sunset in Breath of the Wild or closing the final page of Hyrule, Historia, you may feel a gentle melancholy, a gratitude for having experienced something that transcends its medium. The legends of Hyrule are just stories, but they resonate because they mirror our own experiences of growing, learning, and seeking balance. They remind us that time passes, but memories remain. They show that the smallest actions, giving a girl her cuckoos back, planting a tree that will grow over centuries, playing a lullaby on an ocarina, can have lasting effects. They encourage us to take care of our world, to be brave when facing our own Ganon, to be wise when making choices, and to wield whatever power we have with responsibility. As you drift towards sleep, images of swords, castles, and forests may float through your mind. Let them mingle with memories of your own life. Let them blend into dreams that teach, comfort, and inspire. The legend of Hyrule is not just about a kingdom. It is about how we navigate our own landscapes, external and internal, and how we find our own balance. In reflecting on the complete history of Hyrule, it can be easy to become overwhelmed by the sheer number of names, places, and events. Yet when you step back and consider the narrative as a whole, patterns emerge. Each age introduces its own take on certain motifs, the journey from innocence to experience, the interplay of light and shadow, the importance of listening to others, the need to confront one's fears. In The Wind Waker, the ocean stands in for uncertainty and possibility. In Twilight Princess, the twilight represents the boundary between known and unknown. In Breath of the wild itself is a teacher. Even in side stories like Link's crossbow training or the multiplayer quests of Four Swords adventures, the act of aiming or cooperating underscores the same virtues. When fans gather at conventions, they share these lessons, sometimes dressed as their favorite sage or villain, sometimes simply wearing a t-shirt with a golden triangle. They swap stories of when they first got stuck in the Water Temple, how they felt when Mipha confessed her love, or how they laughed at Tingle's antics. They bring homemade music boxes that play Song of Time. They bake cakes shaped like rupees. The legend inspires creativity because it comes from a place of sincerity. The developers did not set out to craft a perfect timeline. They set out to evoke the feeling of discovery, the joy of solving a puzzle, the comfort of a familiar motif. Over decades, that intention has remained clear. And as long as players continue to listen, remember, and share, the story of Hyrule will continue to grow, branching like the great Deku tree itself. Good night.